Faraz, and I'm here again to help you guys with some more knowledge in the area of SAP as well as some understanding on the project side of things. So, in my last video, some people have requested to make a video on writing of functional spec and the usage of functional specification. So, I thought let's make that video. Sorry. So let me explain more about the functional specification and the usage of it and how it's being used in projects. So before I proceed, one request that please like and subscribe my channel. The reason for that is that it will encourage me to make more interesting videos and it will go bigger and bigger. And my aim is to help all the as- aspirants, SAP aspirants who want to get a career in SAP or are already in SAP and want to exceed in their career. I will be helping them with more interesting videos. So that's it. So if you can do me that favor, that'll really help me. So let's start. So functional specification is a document that is used in projects whenever there is a requirement to make any changes in standard SAP. So functional specification generally is owned by functional consultants like SD, or any module consultant. And if you're working on a project, you realize that there is a thing which standard SAP cannot meet. For example, a report, a Z report, any development which SAP standard cannot meet. So we'll explain with the example of a small report which is generally easy to understand, and then in the future videos we can have more videos on doing any development in SAP work. So also I have a website, infogentraining.com, where I've put some detailed explanation of writing a functional spec and how to work on tables and how to actually write your own spec. So you can always have a look on that. But let's start. Okay. So before I take an example of how to write how to work on a development, let me explain the details of a functional specification. Like what does it contain? So every project that you work on, they have their own template of functional specification. So if you work on a manufacturing industry or any other industry, they have their own set of documents, templates that are created, which the functional consultants use to create the spec. So the functional specification should be written in a manner that the technical consultants, like for example, ABAP consultants, will be able to understand that and write the logic for that bespoke development that you want to do. So I will cover the basic uh, elements that are needed in a functional spec. So when you are asked to write, you can use this as a reference. This is a product of Infogen training, so you can use this as a reference to write your own report. So write your own spec. So and I'll cover the key things that are needed in the functional spec. So main thing is that your header, you can have your own style, and in the header you will find there is a version, which means that when you write a function spec, there could be many approvers of that spec because you're making changes in a standard SAP development. So when you're doing that, it needs to be approved by maybe your senior consultant or by technical consultant or an architect who will see, okay, every conditions are met. It won't affect any standard application, any processes. So that's why you have versions. So version point one will be your version. Next version would be after approval, and there could be many more versions once you keep working on that spec. So suppose you've worked on one spec and then after 6 months there is another requirement on the same report, then you release another version. So that's how versioning is important. It's very important for any function spec that you do. Okay. Status could be your in progress or reviewed, whatever status you want to put. Okay. I'll just cover. It's very difficult to explain each and every section, but these are the key ones that you need. Okay. And then created by is the person, like your functional consultant, like in my case it would be my name, then reviewed by, validated by. So all these are compliance checks. Okay, so like why, what is being done at the back of it. So so in SAP project you also have certain audits for any development work that you've done, so then you can review from that. So in summary, like for example, I'll take SD report as an example of this spec. Okay, so SD report showing sales order, net sales per item. Okay, so this is something right now when you have SAP system, you can check in VBAK and VBAP tables, but the requirement is that the business wants to see the report in one table. Okay, so that's this requirement summary. Okay, so this is the first section. Then there is revision history. So I was explaining you about the version, and then suppose you have worked on the basic version and someone else after 6 months picks up with another change, so that's a version 2. So like start of the uh, report design, for example, and then someone can say updated more columns in the report, and this could be date, like for example 18 Jan 2024, or 3, oh no, sorry, 4, and this could be today's date. After a month somebody else has worked on it. Okay, so these are the versions. This is also important as part of your spec. And then afterward, mainly the general contents that should be used in a functional spec, which is acceptable by different parties, your senior consultant, your business, and your technical, who's the person who will be working on it. So general information is like short description, report on SAP sales or material, for example. And then in this section, generally, I mean, companies have this detailed analysis of how you want to indicate what kind of spec is it, or you can just have one section saying a standard report. But this is standard, which is followed by many companies in their own design. So you can always say it's high, mandatory, or medium, because if one consultant is getting like 5 or 6 developments to work on and complete, then he will prioritize the one which is high, and then the medium will come followed by the other. And then complexity determines the number of hours and how long will it take, so all that factors. And if it's depending on what kind of spec is it, if it's something related to a Z program that needs to be run daily or weekly to update the status of delivery, for example, then that will be applicable. Otherwise, it will become not applicable. And then you have technical information, whether you need a user exit or body, or we'll come to that in future sessions about more about user exit and other things. Okay, but in this case, this is just a standard report. So the programmer wouldn't need to make use of a user exit or a body to update any program. So they'll just create a Z report and provide you as a separate transaction code. Okay, so module, you can say SD as submodule, order management, something like that. Okay, dependency on any object, like for example, if you're working any integrated, you have to mention that. In our case, it's none. Okay. And then some general information. Generally, in many projects, if you're working on a legal requirement, like a form which is legally needed by companies, then that becomes high priority, and then that needs to be done first. So in our case, it's not legal, it's just a report. So you can just mark NA or just leave it blank, depending upon how your company has designed your template. Okay. And then some alternatives, if you can't do it, then how the business is gonna be affected and all that reasons. If you want descriptions of alternatives, like, it depends, but these are generally not so important. The key is to understand the next coming parts. So functional requirements. Okay. In the functional requirement, we have to provide the information about the development that you're going to do and why is it needed. So like in this case, we can say there is a business requirement from on creating a report that covers sales order, total value of the order, and material. By passing the sales order number in the selection. What this means is that user will just pass a sales order number, and then with that he'll be able to see the sales order number, the total value, and the materials against which the items were sold. Okay, and then you have to just give a reason. This is needed to understand. Business has to provide a reason. Why do they need this report? Why can't they just have the standard tables to look at the report? So that is why it's important to explain why it is needed. This is needed to understand the volume of sales made per product and what is the total value coming for the sales. So what this means is that the user wants to see the total value of the sales order along with the different materials that are listed in the sales order. Okay. So one can argue saying that you can go in VBAP table and just see it. So in VBAP table, you will not be able to see the total value of the sales order, but you can only see the price per material because it's an item table. And in header, you can see VBAK. So it's a combination of header and item table that is needed in the report, which you can't see uh, in the standard table. And there might be existing reports which are there that you can see the list and all that, but this is for you to understand how to work on a spec rather than looking at that whether it already exists or not. So the idea is to explain about the functional specification and why it is needed. Okay, so this is business rules, like if what kind of rules that you want to make sure that the business is needed. Like for example, who will be using the report, uh, whether will have access to the full report, or why can't they just use the standard table. Generally in SE16, transaction code that you use for table is not provided at the production to the users. All kind of rules are implemented here. Okay, so now this is the part 4, is the part where you will actually write the logic of the report, which the technical consultant, the ABAP consultant, will use it. So for him, this is not so relevant. All the business functional requirements for him, he or she will look into the logic that is needed for that. So let's say the logic one for this report is, this is just an illustration which you see right now. I'll change that. Okay, so first is selection input parameter. Okay, so I'll just copy the, so input parameter is the selection parameter, in other words. Okay, selection parameter means that what will the user provide in his or her input screen to see the report. So the selection parameter could be, which the user wants, is the sales order number. So when you give that, then the ABAPA will understand, okay, based on the sales order number, he will have to find the logic with the tables to build the report. So sales order number, when you say, then you have to also provide the table name to the technical consultant. So VBAP, VBAK at the header, and the field name is VBELN. So what you will write is, get the sales order number from the table VBAK and pass VBELN. Okay, VBELN is the sales document. So he, now at this point, the ABAP consultant has the understanding and knowledge of getting the sales order number. Now this is selection parameter. Now the next part is the layout. Okay, so for the layout, next is layout. Okay, so in the layout, I will say the logic. So this will change slightly to logic, table and C logic. Okay, so logic is important. This is okay. So layout logic. So first, before you give the logic, you just, it would be good to give the illustration of how the report will look like. So the report will look like sales order number, material, sales order value, and if you want to give any other field, like for example sales org. Okay, so suppose this is the layout that the user is expecting. All right, so sales order number could be like, for example, 6900112. Let me just give the this as this. Okay, material number, let's say 100. Okay, and this. So while you're working on a spec, you'll find these kind of small issues as well. So sales order values, let's say €1,000 or GBP, where you feel, and then sales org could be, let's say GB01, and the currency, if you want to put it, would be next a new column. So suppose this is your layout, how it will look like. Now sales order logic, so sales order. So now you here you can explain the logic. Sales order, how to pick the sales order, material, value, sales org. Ignore these for now, and then we'll work on the logic. So for logic, you will have to talk in terms of tables and fields. Okay. So technical people mainly understand table, field, user exit, program name, and all that. Okay. So you tell them get VBAK VBELN. That's it. They will understand what is this. So they will understand they have the sales order number, this one. Okay. Now material. So now material is not from VBAK table. It's from VBAP table. So there has to be a link between VBAK and VBAP table. So when you get time, look for tables in SAP sales and distribution, and look for the integration between tables and fields. There's a video on infogentraining.com as well. So you can look for how to write a functional spec and understanding tables. So you'll get an idea. But in the interest of this project, I'll just quickly explain that there are all the sales order numbers or all the transaction and master data that you save is stored in tables, and tables collect all that information that you have saved, like sales order number, item number, whatever you give in the sales order, that will be stored in the table. Okay. So VBAK is a table, VBALN is a field. So you put the hyphen there. Now, how do we get the material? But when it's from a different table, so you say once you've got the VBELN, then you can say pass VBELN into VBELN is common in VBAK and VBAP table. So this is called a primary key. Okay. So between when you are linking the two tables, you need a common field that can link. Otherwise, the technical person will ask, how will I, what to pass in VBAP when there is no link? Okay, so you say pass VBALN into VBAP, VBAP table and fetch MATNR. Now, from experience, I know the field names, but if you're looking for the first time, then you can look into SE11 and SE16 and look for the table and field names. Okay. Now, one sales order can have multiple materials. The technical consultant can ask, oh, but this can have multiple lines. How do you want me to display? So what you can say is that you add, one second. So suppose this sales order has multiple materials. Okay. So and if he says, okay, so how do you want me to print it? So you can say, if you can print it like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just putting three different materials in the same sales order. And the expectation is that the user wants to check the total sales order value. So what you will do is the total sales order value is 1,000, which means this could be 500, this could be 300, and this could be 200. So then total becomes 1,000, and he just wants to see the total sales order value of those materials. So what you can say is put a logic to automatically sum the materials. So instead of printing it here, then you can print it 1,000 here. Okay, and then the sales org, this will be the same. Okay. So then you can put the sum sign or some sign here, total. Okay. Now, if you print 1,000 here, then it may become confusing because this is showing per line item. So if you want, uh, you can discuss with the business that for each line item there is a material. Do you want me to print and show in the report for each line item? So like, for example, 5, 300, and 200. So the business can say, "Oh yeah, that's good to see. So why don't you print material price per material and then show the sum in the end. That will be helpful. So you can say, okay, yeah, so that is possible. So you can also show sales order, but they have to change the title of the column. So sales order value per item, and then before you can jump onto the new sales order, a sum will be displayed. It's slightly complicated because you're printing the sum in the end with the calculation using some internal tables, etc. Okay, so that's one way of doing it, and then you can think how you want to do it. You can put in your comments how you would have done it. You can add an extra column here per line item, and then total as an extra column which just displays the sum at the header or somewhere. It depends how creative you can be, and you can discuss with the business how do you want to do it. But here, material, you put this logic here. So now value, this is, for example, the total value. So the total value will be fetch. And if you see, I haven't looked at the SAP system right now. I'm trying to just explain and keep the focus on the functional spec. So fetch, I think I'm not sure 100%, but you can check the net value field name. But there's one of the tasks. Maybe you can check net, yeah, whatever, for from VBAP table for that material. Okay, and then in the other logic here, this could be total value. You can here say just here for 1 second. I'll take it for the materials that are extracted against a sales order, take the net price and sum for all the materials. Some So that means he will understand that you are actually using the formula of sum of doing a sum of all the material that are fetched. For sales org, simple logic, get VBAK AORG. Okay. Now again, I'm not explaining you I'm not in this video. I was not trying to explain how to get into the details of a logic, but my main intention was to explain the different elements that are covered in the functional spec. So in summary, you write the title, you do the revisions and summary and all of that. Then you work on the revision history. Then there are contents. You write this, and then there's a functional requirement which is from the business, then rules, and then you come on to the logic. So the logic part, there are many examples that I'm going to explain in the future, but this is just for an understanding on how the logic should be thought through for a report. When it comes to more complicated, like adding a field catalog into pricing, condition table, and all that, that's different. Then we come to user exit and all of that. Okay, and then after you've written this logic, so you can go through and understand and look for tables and fields and find yourself what should be the logic, whether this example is incorrect completely or it's not possible. You can all reply to me, and then I'll see whether your comments are valuable, and then I can work on those. And then in the end, on step 5, the last step generally is the test plan. So test plan could be, for example, scenario, run the report, expected result would be selection parameter, sales order number, then actual result. Here you can put actual result. Okay, and then uh, one second. This is as expected. Okay, and then how you run the report. That is how it's been done. So thanks. And then maybe last part would be the report layout, how it looks like. So that's how you work. So just remember in your learning for this video, you have these contents that you have understood for the functional spec. Okay, thanks guys for watching. There was some disruption towards the end of the video, but it generally happens. And I normally make videos without any editing or anything, just random on the flow. And you might have noticed there wasn't any SAP screen shown. Just was just focused on explaining how functional spec is written and what are the contents of a functional spec that will help you in your projects. So don't forget to like and subscribe for more such videos, and you have a lovely rest of the day. Okay, thank you. Bye.